everyone. We're back with another news roundup, and there's a lot of news happening. Okay, so yes, something I want to talk to you guys about is that one of the articles states the fear for the U.S. economy as the fight in the Middle East threatens oil prices and shipping through the Suez Canal and
Suez.
These are terrible words for me. And Suez Canal and Strait of Hormuz. Oh my God. Oh, guys. As Hormuz?
Yep, that's it.
As experts warn, it could cause more inflation. And as we know, inflation has already been a huge conflict. So something they've been saying is that this whole Middle Eastern fight might set us back with all the progress we have been trying to make and all that we have been trying to implement. I kind of want to question you guys, how can it be affected, really? And where do you think this will go? Do you think this will happen? What kind of precautions can there be?
Well, you've got several things going on because where you're talking about is Iran is over there near there, and with all of that, the oil that's coming out of the Middle East will be filled up with tankers. The tankers then are going to be delayed with the potential. That's what the threat is, and so things of that nature. Keep in mind, Iran is the financial backer of Hamas, as well as other organizations. And so the Western world's going to turn around and start putting more and tighter sanctions on Iran. Iran's going to react to it and create havoc by probably either attacking the tankers or holding them up or seizing them or whatever they've done. And that's based on past actions on their part. That said, then if you disrupt the flow of oil, there's going to be then an elevation of prices more than likely. That's what the fear is. The question is that at least in the U.S. now, in Europe, it's again it'll be a big hit there. Russia has shown support in the past towards Israel. However, in this current scenario, if you'll notice, Russia and China have been silent. There's been no reaction to it. So, Russia may be, slowing down their delivery of oil to Europe and more specifically into even Germany, because Germany gets a lot of its petroleum from Russia.
So why is that?
Well, because they are in support of Hamas, not of Israel now, or something, or whatever. I mean, this is speculation, folks.
No, I did see a theory, Andy, about that Hamas has, so obviously they have to have some kind of money with all these things that they're shooting up in the air and blah, 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 blah,
Iran.
Attacks that they're creating. And that some of the money could come from Russia. I don't know. I saw a theory. I don't know if it's true again, but obviously I saw this on the internet.
Well,
that's a theory.
That it's a theory where part of it could be, I guess, I will say this. I don't want to speak. I can't speak to where the money actually comes from. There are reports, though, that Iran, however they are supplying it, is supporting Hamas. And so there you have that. Then you have the rest of the world again, and with the oil we're talking about, is going to disrupt it and the oil flows. And then people, look, each of our countries utilizes so much petroleum. And you cannot, for whatever reason, people can start going, that's why this is even more justification to go completely, renewable energy. Well, that sounds fine, well and good on paper and in comments. In reality, there are no renewable energy sources that are as productive as the petroleum.
Hi everyone, are you loving our podcast? Do you feel like watching instead of just listening to our episodes? We have started to share our podcast videos on our trade community, www.crowd.trade, where you can view the complete show, comment, and carry conversations with your peers. We have built a trade community around our training courses and different resources for you to collaborate and gain the knowledge you are looking for. Head over to crowd.trade and register for your free account. Let's start trading.
You can do your balances, whatever. Okay, fine. Regardless, all of our economies are tied largely to the flow of oil. Now, that said, as you're going through this, how is Iran or some of these other countries funding some of the terrorist activities? Think back just a few weeks. We just talked about this. China was pushing to replace the US dollar as the global exchange currency, right? So they circumvent the sanctions from the Western banking world. Well, guess what? This is a great example of how all of that circumvention of the banking world in other currencies where they're more pro to or either anti-US or whatever and not using US dollars. Okay, fine. There is money still flowing, different currencies still flowing to support different things. So yes, the bombs, the rockets, the ammunition, the weapons, the things to create the bombs and all that are being paid for in other currencies and being bought and sold from different countries. Case in point, like North Korea is applying a lot of this as far as manufactured, but it's being paid for by Iran currency or China currency or whatever the case may be. Folks, this is what we're talking about is as you start looking through these things, it starts going full circle. And people kind of minimize it initially, but guess what? We are living in a situation right now where circumventing some of these sanctions that were out there, that tells you those sanctions were effective. But now they've circumvented them. They've come up with a way to deal with it. And so not only are we seeing some horrendous activities where people are dying and being tortured and or killed and or taken hostage, in addition to that, all of us, the rest of the world, are going to pay a price. How? Inflation of the oil prices, inflation of other goods and services, and all of that. So when we start coming back and Anik, again, this is one of those things I absolutely love what you're saying and how you open it up. You're wanting for the sake of humanity, we want peace. But if you've got a entity that does not respect authority, does not respect a culture, does not respect life, you've got to take a stand. You've got to stand up to it and say, this is a crime. This is criminal. This is something that's got to be dealt with. And it isn't just a little slap on the hand. You're going to have to get in there and kick some backside there, so.
There's not much trade that's being, while there's going to be inflation and, hold up, on the ocean and stuff, what is trade being affected? Like, are companies having to worry about, their trade, or what do you think on that one?
Well, as related to the canal or the strait, is that what you mean as related to that?
Yeah, no, just with like all this this whole war. Do companies have to worry about their trade? Do companies have to?
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, everything's getting disrupted. So yes, of course they do, because you never know who else is going to join the fight. You don't know if China's going to join the fight and what side they're going to pick. You don't know if Russia's going to join the fight and what side they're going to pick. It might be obvious, but if they do, you need to kind of just be careful and see where that's going to lead to, because that's obviously going to disrupt not only trade, but the economy and the way we travel, everything. So yes, it's definitely going to be a situation that as importers and exporters, we need to just make sure that we keep an eye on it, because suddenly sending your material or getting your material or your products from through a certain route is not going to work anymore, because it's getting, again, disrupted, by some kind of conflict.
So there could be potential sanctions at that point, right? That the United States.
Besides the sanctions, I think it's more beyond sanctions at this point. It's just more like physically things are going to get disrupted. Physically, I'm not going to go through the Suez Canal because it's dangerous, right? Or I can't make it all the way through, or whatever, or I can't dock in certain ports in Israel.
There's certain ports that won't take if they're in support of the Palestinians or of Iran or whatever, there may be some countries that will not allow that ship under certain flags to come in and load or unload.
Yeah, so I understand that now with the trade, but for the trade, the importers and exporters, obviously there's many people working in the company. Who is going to have to, because obviously this is a fast moving thing, I would say, like from one day to the next, we could not be able to ship things from China because China's moving in. So at what point you lose money, right? If you're waiting for something coming and it might not come because there's a whole war going on, and now China has joined and they can't get the shipment, so they're going to lose all that money, right? And then
it's going to delay everything. Everything is you're bringing up some good questions, and again, so basically, is what you're getting at is what do you do about it? And so, from that perspective, I would tell you that first off, you look at if you are importing goods directly from Israel. You need to look at that there will be delays in the commodities coming out of there. If you are selling to Israel, again, there's going to be delays, if not a postponement or a pause of orders, because right now the country is in a war, and so their lives have pretty much stopped. Now, looking at Lalo brought up the deal. It may get into a secondary thing here where other countries, certain ones are supportive or not. So the issue here may be a case where you're going to have to look at different sources for your commodities. This is why, quite frankly, a lot of people you were talking about trying to move away from China as the main source for certain things. Well, you've got to have it. That goes across all boards. Is that don't have what's the don't put all your eggs in one basket is one of the old wives adages or whatever. Is that why is that? Because you drop the basket, all those eggs are broken. So the scenario there is if you have multiple sources for your goods is one thing. Secondly, is where those goods are manufactured, you have to transport those then. And where you're transporting those, it comes back. I have to come back to North America is a pretty safe bet. You don't have to worry about ships and things of that nature. It's land, it's air, it's rail, it's whatever. But the point being is it's closer as well. And we have still great relationships, obviously, with Canada and Mexico. You can extend that down into Central America, although I will say again, we talked about the drought in Panama. There is a floating city that is in one of the rivers down there, and it literally is grounded. It's the drought has been so bad. They've had some rain, and we're heading into the rainy season, which is going to be good. But they said this drought may continue on into 2024. It disrupts your supply chain, so you're going to have to figure those things out. So the point is, folks, is like, look at this. Check your sources. You need to get with your procurement. You need to get with your marketing and your sales and all those and see where are you. Look at your customer orders and start looking to say, are there other sources that you need to maybe, some of these locations you may have alternate sources already set up. but you need to maybe beef up and move some of the orders from one to the other and start beefing that up for your supply if you're trying to keep it continuous. That's just some of those things. And then, again, coming back is again out of Israel. All right, diamonds. Well, if diamonds are one of the biggest commodities, guess what? Well, that's obviously jewelry. But what about machinery that uses diamonds? What about other types of, things that, diamonds and diamond dust and things of that nature come into play? It may be a delay in that. So just food for thought, but very, very good questions.
Yeah, so I think that brings a lot of light to it because I don't know because I don't work in logistics in that kind of sense. But I would think that this can create some uneasiness when you're importing and exporting all over the world and a war is happening, on the other side of the world. So thank you for those answers. I think maybe that can shed some light on it and help people understand and prepare them, for what's to come. I do want to have a quick update on the UAW kind of strike. And it says it will not expand strikes at Detroit automakers after last minute GM proposal. So we had talked about this a while back. I thought it seems that this is not really cleared up yet. And also that the power of UAW seems to work as General Motors set to lay the foundation for a just transition, which is good for them, I would say. I don't know how you respond to that, Andy. So now do you think we will see this for Ford Motor and Chrysler? That's what the question is basically in the article. If we will see kind of just
very good question.
Well.
Very good question, Anik. But that is the tactic of the UAW, and it has been. And what it is that they will pick one of the top three automakers, domestic automakers, and go to town on it, negotiate, come up with whatever the package is. And then once they've got that one, they'll use that as the benchmark then with the other two. And he goes through that. So, as they're going back and forth, there's a strike, there's this, is that the one thing that I will tell you is, in this is that, they expanded the strike beyond Detroit initially. It didn't go well. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of places that there are auto manufacturing plants around the country. And there are a lot of folks that even working there, they're not supportive of this whole situation. Yeah, everybody wants to make more money. Don't get me wrong. All right. If you look at the average wage of an auto worker, it's astronomically higher compared to the average person out on the street. So there's not a whole lot of sympathy here from the average, public person here. That said, they're going to do what they've got to do. So I'm not faulting it here. It is what it is. The one thing that I will also say, though, that as you're going through, keep in mind, there's a lot of union dues that are paid. So even when they're saying, oh, they're going to now, make $50 an hour, $40 an hour, $30, whatever in the brackets, there's a large portion of that goes to union dues. So, that worker doesn't really make that. There's a net in there, but it'll be better than what the average person is making off of the street. So some of the things I think they're asking for are a bit unrealistic, but that's what the unions will start with, an unrealistic measure, and the companies start with their stance, and hopefully they'll come to the middle and they will negotiate something. So that's what's going to happen. And to your point, will it affect the other automakers? Yes, but it's a case where one agreement will finally be made, and they'll use that as the benchmark for other things that the other automakers will need to do or try and do. Anyway.
Okay. Well, I guess it's a touchy subject because, there's two sides and you have to kind of choose, or you have to say what's right. I don't really know what's right. I think it's, what you're saying sounds pretty fair. But Anyways, this kind of wraps up our episode. It was a really good one. I wanted a theme, which this time it was Israel. I think it was spot on because that's what everyone talks about. And so, we needed to talk about it as well in a bit of a trade way. Anyways, so that's a wrap up. I'm going to go watch your movie now because I'm so excited. And I hope you have a great day. Again, we'll be caught up on the news, stay on top of it, and we'll be back next Monday. Next Monday with another great episode. Anyways, bye. Have a great day.
Anik, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.